Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? What we're going to be talking about today is something that is something that I never thought uh you would actually hear about. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But before we get into it, hey, my name is Autumn, and on this channel we talk about current events. On my other channel, Autumn's Backyard Garden, we talk about prepping, gardening, and current events. I also have a Patreon, and over there we talk about stuff that we can't talk about here due to YouTube's terms and policies. The links are in the description box below. So there is a former Dona Ana County Magistrate Judge. His name is Joel Juan Cano, Cano, and his wife Nancy, who were just arrested um, yesterday, April 24th, in Las Cruces, New Mexico, by federal authorities for allegedly harboring uh, Christian Ortega Lopez, who's a 23-year-old Venezuelan national and suspected member of the TDA gang, Tren de la Agua. Uh, and I'm I got so deep into this while doing research. I said, "Oh my dear God, why would you do this?" It's one of those. Yeah. So when I get into this, I'm going to give you the background. I'm going to give you the allegations, the arrest. I'm going to give you details like you. So sit back, relax, coffee, snacks, all of it. Just okay. Pillow behind the back. Do it all. Okay. So here's the background. Okay. Joel's career, the judge, he's a Democrat, a former cop, served as a magistrate judge in Dona Ana County since 2011. He was elected in 2010 and ran unopposed in subsequent elections, securing his fourth term in 2022. His resignation. Cano resigned in March 3rd, 2025, days after a February 28th, 2025 federal raid on his home, with his last day as judge on March 21st. The New Mexico Supreme Court received his resignation letter on March 31st. There was a permanent ban on him on April 22nd, 2025. The New Mexico Supreme Court permanently barred Cano from holding judicial office or exercising judicial authority in the state, including officiating weddings due to the allegations. Now, let's talk about the allegations and the arrest, okay? The federal raid and the arrest. On yesterday, the FBI and Homeland Security investigations agents raided their house, executing a search warrant and probable cause arrest warrants. Joel was charged with tampering with evidence, and his wife Nancy with conspiracy to tamper. So the harboring allegations, the couple allegedly allowed this TDA member, Christian Ortega Lopez, who's undocumented and suspected ties to TDA, to live in a casita or a guest house behind their home. Ortega Lopez was initially hired by Nancy for home repairs, including installing a glass door, and was later offered accommodations after being evicted from an El Paso apartment in April of 2024. So, is there evidence of gang affiliation? Well, investigators found evidence linking Ortega Lopez to TDA, including clothing, tattoos, voicemails, text messages, and social media posts. The posts show him posing with firearms, some allegedly owned by April Cano, who is Joel and Nancy's daughter. So, the firearm seizure from the Cano's home. During the February 28, 2025 raid, 4 firearms were seized from a neighboring property that was owned by their daughter, April. Ortega Lopez admitted to possessing these, which is illegal for the undocumented. Social media evidence included photos and videos of him at a shooting range, and there is also, let's talk about his cell phone, okay, with the text messages and all that stuff. His cell phone contained images that are so disturbing, I'm not going to talk about it. Because you want to talk about decapitated, okay, dismembered hands, further raising concerns about his TDA ties. Now let's talk about this Cristia Ortega Lopez's background. He unlawfully entered the U.S. on December 15, 2023, near Eagles Pass by scaling the barbed wire fence. He was detained by Border Patrol but released on December 18, 2023, due to overcrowding, with a notice to appear for removal proceedings. After his release, he moved to El Paso, Texas, where he met Nancy. He later relocated to New Mexico, using the Cano residence as his address for a 2024 immigration relief application. Ortega Lopez faces federal charges for being undocumented in possession of a firearm and ammo under 18 U.S.C. 9225, with potentially penalty of up to 15 years in prison. He's currently being detained at the Dona Ana County Detention Center. So here's some additional details with that. Court documents and social media evidence show Ortega Lopez interacting closely with the Cano family, including Christmas 2024 photos of him in their home and a March 13, 2025 exhibit of him dining with them. April Cano allegedly showing him how to use her firearms. On March 13, 2025, Nancy wrote to U.S. Magistrate Judge Damian Martinez, pleading for leniency for Ortega Lopez. She admitted to hiring him illegally for handyman work and hiring him out to others, which may have contributed to the tampering charges. At a March 14th, 2025 detention hearing, Judge Martinez initially ruled that Ortega Lopez was not a flight risk, citing Joel Cano's reputation and stating that Cano wouldn't let anybody live on his property. Prosecutors appealed this, and a hearing to reconsider bail was scheduled for April 30th, 2025. So, court documents mentioned 3 other Venezuelans: Juan Manuel Acevedo Leon, Efren Jose Montella Castillo, and Jordan Alejandro Centelles Luego, who were allegedly staying at the Cano residence as well, and they are also associated with TDA. Acevedo Leon is in ICE custody in Texas, while information on the others is very limited right now. So now let's talk about the public and political reaction. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem stated that under President Trump, we have arrested over 150,000 of them, including more than 600 members of the TDA. If you are here illegally and break the law, we will hunt you down and arrest you and lock you up. Amy Barella, who is the chairwoman of the Republican Party of New Mexico, said the people of New Mexico are tired of a system where the powerful don't play by their don't play by our own rules. We demand real accountability for Judge Cano's connection to the gang-affiliated criminal and full transparency on how our judiciary is being held to the same laws as the rest of us. Neighbors expressed shock, with one, Nguyen Suel, noting concern about the access to weapons, calling it very scary. So, if you want a broader context, the designated TDA is designated as a foreign terrorist organization by our president in 2025. They are linked to substance trafficking, human smuggling, extortion, violence. It operates within the Cartel de los Sols and is accused of destabilizing democratic nations. The Cano arrest may signal a broader federal effort targeting officials complicit with, like immigration violations, with prosecutors reviewing communications and financial records for potential additional arrests. So the area of Dona Ana County has been noted as a hub for illegal immigration and trafficking and smuggling, and raising concerns about local official involvement. So there are unresolved questions here. It remains unclear whether the Canos will face further charges, such as harboring an illegal immigrant and providing materials to support foreign terrorist organizations. No charges have been reported against April, despite her alleged involvement with the firearms. And Homeland Security continues to lead the case with potential for more arrests as evidence is reviewed. So the motivations behind Joel and Nancy's decision to harbor this TDA member is not fully clear, as the case is still under investigation, and there's no definitive statements from the Canos that have been made public as of yet. However, based on available evidence and reasonable inferences, here are possible reasons along why they might have known or suspected his ties. So, could they have personal relationship or sympathy? We don't know. Nancy, on March 13, 2025, with the letter to the judge, the magistrate, Martinez, that could be sympathy, okay? It may have developed a personal connection, the Canos, viewing him as vulnerable individual rather than a criminal. Nancy's letter suggests that she saw him as someone needing help, possibly downplaying or rationalizing his criminal affiliations due to familiarity or emotional attachment. Joel, as a former cop and a magistrate judge, may have believed that he could monitor or reform Ortega Lopez, underestimating the risk. This aligns with Judge Martinez's statement that Cano's reputation suggests that he wouldn't knowingly harbor a dangerous individual. So could there be a financial or practical benefit? Well, Nancy admitted to hiring Ortega Lopez for home repairs. The speculation, while the Canos may have benefited from cheap or free labor in exchange for housing, the casita behind their home was a low-cost way to provide shelter, possibly seen as mutually beneficial arrangement. Why does this fit? Well, as a former judge, Joel likely had financial resources, but may have valued the convenience of an on-site worker, especially if this kid was paid under the table, as Nancy's letters implied illegal employment. There's definitely naivety and denial here, okay? Because despite this kid having gang-related tattoos and the clothing and the social media posts, the Canos may not have fully grasped the severity of his affiliation. There's no direct evidence confirming that they knew he was a fugitive, as his initial Border Patrol release in December 2023 gave him a notice to appear, suggesting he was not immediately targeted as a fugitive. The Canos may have rationalized his behavior as posturing or cultural differences, especially if he presented himself as a non-threatening person. Joel's judicial experience might have led him to believe that he could judge character accurately, underestimating the evidence. Their daughter, April, allegedly allowed this kid to use her firearm, suggesting a level of trust or recklessness within the family, possibly extending to Joel and Nancy. Could there be potential coercion or even fear? Well, TDA is known for extortion and violence, and Ortega Lopez's phone contains those images, like I was telling you about. It indicated his potential for intimidation. However, there's no direct evidence suggesting that the Canos were even coerced or they knew. If the Canos suspected his gang ties, they might have feared repercussions for turning him away, especially given TDA's reputation. Joel, as a judge, may have worried about professional or personal consequences if his association with Ortega Lopez was exposed. Allowing him to stay long term for almost a year, despite the red flags, could indicate a sense of being trapped in the situation. What about political or ideological beliefs? Well, Joel was a Democrat. He was elected in a county with progressive leanings on immigration. His resignation and the New Mexico Supreme Court's swift ban suggest political fallout as a concern. The Canos may have held lenient views on immigration, viewing Ortega Lopez as a victim of circumstance rather than a criminal. This could align with broader ideological stances in their community, though no explicit statements confirm this. Nancy's pleas for leniency in her letter reflects a sympathetic stance, possibly rooted in ideological beliefs about second chances or immigration policy. Did they know he was a TDA member? They likely had a reason to suspect it, given the visible indicators. He was a close contact with the family, including dining together, using their daughter's firearms, suggests that they had ample opportunity to observe his behavior and his affiliations. With Joel's background, like I said, as a cop, as a judge, you would think that he would have been trained to recognize criminal indicators. But he was entirely oblivious to the gang signs. They overlooked the red flags to maintain the arrangement. However, they may not have known the full extent of his TDA ties or viewed him as an active fugitive one. So, they may have separated his criminal affiliations from his personal demeanor, especially if he was cooperative or helpful at home, you know? And there's no evidence that indicates that Ortega Lopez was a wanted fugitive until February 28th of this year, because the raid uncovered his firearm violations and TDA links. The Canos may have believed he was merely undocumented and not a high priority target. I mean, this is puzzling because the Canos' actions are confounding, because Joel's judicial position made him vulnerable to scrutiny. Harboring an undocumented member, even unknowingly, risked his career, as evidenced by his resignation and permanent ban. Then his law enforcement and judicial background should have made him more cautious, yet he allowed this guy to live on his property for almost a year. Then the daughter, her role in providing firearms in the family's social interactions suggests a collective lapse in judgment, which is hard to reconcile with Joel's professional experience. I mean, okay, likely explanation here. The most plausible scenario combines sympathy, naivety, and practical benefit. They likely met this kid through Nancy's hiring, felt compassion for his situation, eviction, undocumented status, valued his labor. They may have noticed gang indicators, but rationalized them to his integration into their lives and Joel's confidence in his ability to assess character. Over time, they became complicit, by failing to act, possibly fearing exposure to TDA retaliation. Their charges, tampering with evidence, conspiracy to tamper, suggest they attempted to cover up their involvement after the February 2025 raid, indicating awareness of guilt, but not necessarily initial intent to harbor a known gang member. It's baffling that a seasoned judge and his wife would let someone like this, with clear ties, live on their property, especially with the red flags. Most people would feel uneasy just knowing that someone with his background was even in the same vicinity, you know? So it's so hard to grasp. It truly is. So while we don't have their direct statements, here's what likely drove them to take such lengths despite knowing or suspecting his background. They might have thought, well, maybe he's a low-level gang member or just posturing, acting as if. Nancy hired him, integrated them into their lives. Oh, he's like an adopted son type thing, right? Familiarity might have dulled their alarm bells, making his tattoos and his posts more like, it's bravado. It's not a real threat. It's fine. It's okay. He's just a kid, Nancy's letter asking for leniency. It's like, she seems like maybe she's the type of person like she needs someone to take care of, right? She viewed him as someone in need. Oh my God, he was evicted, undocumented, young. He's 23. Oh, he could be my son. You know, they might have felt like they were helping a good kid caught in bad circumstances. Oh, poor him. Especially if he was polite, helpful at home, you know, or free and cheap labor, make home repairs, sweeten the deal, housing him in the casita, low effort. Nancy hired him out to others. Oh, I know this really great kid. Oh my God, he lives with us. Oh, he's so wonderful. You'll love him. Oh my God. Okay. He's an asset, not a liability now. Now he's going to her friends' houses. I mean, there's just so many different angles. Then maybe, because I mean, that's like with the overconfidence, you know what I mean? Then if they did realize his ties later on, they might have feared if they turned him away. Mm-hmm. TDA's got a reputation for extortion and violence. Could have made him feel stuck, especially if they had leverage over them. You don't know. Nobody knows yet. So, with their charges that they are currently facing, the tampering with evidence, penalty up to 7 years in prison and or a fine, depending on the specifics of the offense. If the tampering is linked to terrorism because of the TDA, could escalate it to 20 years. With her charge, conspiracy to tamper with evidence, up to 5 years and or a fine, as conspiracy carries a maximum penalty of 5 years unless the underlying offense with tampering has a higher penalty, in which case it aligns, which link to terrorism goes up. Now, the ongoing investigation could lead to further charges, depending on evidence uncovered by prosecutors reviewing communications, financial records, possible additional charges. We could be looking at harboring, right, an illegal alien, providing material support to foreign terrorist organizations, aiding and abetting, conspiracy to violate immigration laws. This could only get worse, guys. It could only get worse. So, but it's so hard to predict because the investigation is still going on. The key details It's like the extent of their knowledge, additional evidence from their phones, from their records. Got to look at their financials. Got to look at their financials. Um, Other suspects' testimonies, they're not, nothing is public yet. The tampering charges are narrow, likely based on specific post-raid actions, but broader charges like harboring or material support depend on proving intent, awareness of the TDA status. Yeah, this is going to be a long, hard road. I'm gonna keep up on it though. All right, guys, I'm out of here. I will see you in the next one. Okay, you stay safe, you stay positive, you keep prepping, and as always, fearless.